put yourself ahead of LeBron?
As a team standpoint.
Would you put yourself ahead of LeBron as a team standpoint?
My success as a team is more successful than LeBron. I got 6 rings.
Okay, so then if I talk to an NBA owner, by the way, this is very helpful because
I'm loving it.
This is very helpful because for me as a fan, I've followed this. So if I speak from an NBA standpoint, owner, and I want to find an all-around player.
If I'm speaking from an NBA ownership perspective, and I'm looking for the most complete all-around player in the game, Scottie Pippen just set off a major firestorm around LeBron James in an early 2025 sit-down interview. Pippen made comments that instantly pulled attention across the basketball world even though mainstream media hasn't fully unpacked it yet. What caught everyone off guard wasn't just what he said, but how he said it. Pippen wasn't loud. He wasn't emotional. There was no theatrics or anger. Instead, he came across calm, composed, and deliberate like someone who had been sitting with these thoughts for a long time and finally decided to speak openly. And the impact was immediate. His comments didn't just start a debate, they shook the way people talk about LeBron's entire legacy, almost like a structure people thought was solid suddenly started to crack under pressure. This wasn't a random criticism either. Pippen suggested there's a consistent pattern he believes has followed LeBron throughout his career, something he views as a recurring response when competition reaches its highest intensity. Once he started breaking it down step by step, the conversation shifted fast. People couldn't ignore it anymore. They started replaying moments, revisiting decisions, and rethinking situations that were once considered settled history, and just like that, the debate around LeBron's legacy entered a completely new phase.
You want to be remembered, and you said, I want to be remembered as
the greatest of all time. You know, the reason why I say stuff like that is because when you play the game the way that I played it, why can't I say that?
Oh, that's okay. You can say that. No one's saying you can't say that.
Yeah, say it and mean it.
Oh, so you do believe that?
I'm saying, yeah. Look at the stats. I got 6 rings too.
To really understand why Scottie Pippen's comments hit so hard, you have to look at the timing because this wasn't random at all. It's 2026, and LeBron James is being praised everywhere. Longevity, greatness, all-time rankings. Across every major sports platform, his name is constantly being placed alongside the greatest players in history, often in conversations that would have sounded impossible just 15 years ago. At this point, the narrative around his career felt almost finalized, like the story had already been written. And then Pippen sat down for an interview and flipped that entire conversation upside down in a single moment. What makes it even more interesting is that Pippen has never been afraid to speak his mind. Over the years, his challenged narratives, stirred controversy, and openly questioned parts of NBA history, including moments involving Michael Jordan. But this time felt different. More direct. More personal. Like something he had been holding on to for years finally came out in one breath. That's why the basketball world started buzzing about the interview even before the full clips were widely released. When someone like Pippen speaks that openly about a player of LeBron's stature, people pay attention immediately. And the biggest question everywhere became simple: what exactly did he say? According to Pippen, every single time the moment gets too real, he finds a way out. I've seen it too many times now to keep quiet about it. 6 seconds. 6 seconds. That's all it took to shake the entire basketball conversation. That quote spread instantly, but he didn't stop there. Pippen went further, expanding on what he believes separates good players from truly great ones. In his view, greatness isn't about highlights or stats. It reveals itself when everything tightens up. When pressure rises. When the game stops giving you options. In those moments, he says, there are only 2 choices left: stand and face it, or fold under it. And that's where the debate really begins.
He can do short of, if he wins 4 titles in a row, okay, then we'll have a conversation. That's pressure. But LeBron's been under pressure his entire career. Going to LA does not intensify that pressure. Maybe in that small area of Los Angeles, their expectations are high. But in the entire NBA and in the world, LeBron's legacy is set, right, man? I mean, excuse me, Will?
Well,
white guy, beard.
They don't all look alike. They don't all look alike.
I noticed Max has shaved his beard down, so now you can tell us apart.
And according to Scottie Pippen, LeBron James has never fully stepped into that kind of fire. The guys I respect most in this game, they didn't pick their spots. They stood there and fought every single time. And if you really watch that clip closely, it's not just the words, it's the delivery. The way he speaks, the way he pauses, the expression on his face. It doesn't come across like someone chasing headlines. It feels like someone finally letting out something that's been sitting with him for a long time. That's why it didn't land like a normal opinion, it landed like a judgment. And the basketball world reacted immediately. Within hours, the comments were everywhere, spreading across every platform, getting clipped, replayed, and debated non-stop. But in all that noise, a lot of people missed what Pippen was actually trying to say. He wasn't focusing on one moment in LeBron's career, he was talking about the entire journey. In his view, LeBron's career looks like a series of turning points, moments where pressure builds, everything tightens, and the situation becomes difficult to escape. And in those moments, Pippen believes a pattern appears. When things get heavy, when the roster isn't strong enough, when the matchup feels overwhelming, when the path forward looks blocked, sees the response as change. A reset. A new environment where conditions shift again. To be clear, Pippen wasn't calling LeBron untalented. He made that very clear. I'm not saying he can't play. I'm saying the decisions tell you everything about the competitor. And that's the part that hits hardest. Because in Pippen's mindset, shaped during his years alongside Michael Jordan, true competition meant staying in the situation no matter how uncomfortable it became. No adjustments to avoid pressure. No escape when things got messy. Just standing in it and fighting through it. And in his eyes, LeBron never fully embraced that version of competition. Once those clips started circulating in early 2025, the reaction split instantly. The internet divided almost overnight. One side defended LeBron aggressively, pointing to championships, records, MVPs, finals runs, and calling Pippen bitter or unfair. Some even argued that someone who played next to Michael Jordan shouldn't be questioning anyone else's competitive mindset. But the other side felt differently. They saw Pippen as someone finally saying out loud what they had quietly noticed for years: patterns, decisions, moments that never fully added up in their eyes, but were hard to explain until now. And just like that, the quote kept looping everywhere. Former players started reacting too. Some openly, some privately, in podcasts and conversations that eventually leaked into the broader discussion. And what they were saying wasn't as black and white as the internet debate. The reactions that followed were more layered and far more cautious than the online debate suggested. Even some former players seemed to understand what Scottie Pippen was getting at, just not everyone was willing to say it as directly as he did. But one detail stood out immediately: the silence from LeBron James's camp. No statements. No interviews. No social media response. Just silence. And in situations like this, silence often becomes its own message, sometimes louder than anything that could have been said. This is where the conversation started to go deeper, because Pippen's comments didn't appear out of nowhere. There's history behind it that many people overlook. Pippen has spent years trying to define his own place in basketball history. His relationship with Michael Jordan has always been complex, something he has openly acknowledged himself. His book, past interviews, and public comments have all stirred debate and tension over time. For years, he's also felt boxed in by how the basketball world remembers him, an all-time great, but often viewed through the shadow of someone else. And now, he's watching LeBron being discussed in the greatest of all-time conversation at a level that, in Pippen's view, raises deeper questions about how greatness is defined. Because for Pippen, this has never just been about one player. It's about the meaning of greatness itself. One line from the interview captured that mindset more than anything else. When we talk about the greatest, we should be talking about who stood and fought, not who moved to find easier ground. That isn't just criticism, it's a philosophy, a clear dividing line in how he believes greatness should be judged, not only by talent or statistics, but by how a player responds when everything becomes difficult and there's nowhere comfortable left to go. And whether people agree or disagree, that kind of framing forces reflection. As of 2026, Pippen hasn't walked back anything he said. LeBron hasn't responded either. And the debate continues to grow, showing no signs of slowing down. Because at this point, both interpretations exist side by side. One view sees LeBron as a long-term strategist, someone who built a career through smart decisions, sustained dominance, and unmatched longevity across eras. The other view sees it differently. A competitor who, when pressure intensified, shifted environments in search of a more favorable path. The facts remain the same. The timeline remains the same. What changes is interpretation. And that's exactly why this debate keeps expanding instead of settling. There is no single moment that resolves it. No final answer that ends the conversation. Just two completely different ways of understanding the same career, and depending on perspective, each one feels convincing in its own way. That's why Pippen's challenge still lingers. Not just as an opinion about LeBron, but as a broader question directed at everyone watching. What does greatness actually require when the pressure is at its highest? And until that question gets a universally accepted answer, the debate isn't going anywhere. Now the conversation shifts again, because once you really break down what Pippen said, people stopped looking at LeBron James in general terms and started going back through specific moments in his career. Every big game, every playoff series, every major decision suddenly got dragged back into the spotlight. Nothing was new, but everything started to look different. People began asking the same question again and again. What really happens when everything is on the line? Situations that were once praised without hesitation were now being re-examined from a sharper angle. Not erased, not denied, but reinterpreted. And that's where things got uncomfortable, because it's easy to celebrate greatness, but much harder when someone starts questioning how that greatness was built. Clips started resurfacing everywhere. Analysts went deeper into breakdowns. Fans rewound possessions, quarter by quarter, play by play. Not everyone agreed with the direction the conversation was taking, but one thing was obvious: the debate had changed shape, and it wasn't going back to what it was before. Some pushed back strongly, arguing this was unfair. They pointed out that every all-time great has had struggles, bad losses, and situations that didn't break their way. That part is true. But others kept returning to Pippen's central idea. It's not about failing, it's about what you do when there's no way out except forward. That's the piece that kept sticking in people's minds, and slowly, the discussion stopped being just about stats or championships. It became about mentality, decision-making, and how a player handles the moments that define their legacy. Even younger fans who didn't live through those eras started forming opinions through highlights, clips, and endless online debates. To that point, it wasn't just a sports conversation anymore. It became a clash of interpretations. And in the middle of it all, Pippen's words kept echoing louder every time someone replayed that interview. Whether people agreed or not, he forced everyone to look at greatness through a different lens, and once that happens, it's hard to completely unsee it. That's what made this moment so powerful. It didn't give a final answer. It gave a question that won't go away. What does greatness actually mean? That's the question Pippen put into the air, and nobody has been able to fully settle it since. Because no matter which side you take, the conversation cuts deep. LeBron's legacy remains undeniable: records, longevity, dominance over decades, achievements very few players in history can even approach. That part is set. But at the same time, Pippen's comments introduced a different way of looking at Itone that makes people revisit old moments, rethink assumptions, and reconsider what they thought they already knew, and that's why the debate keeps growing. It's not simple. It's layered. And it changes depending on how you define greatness. Some will always say greatness is about adapting, evolving, and sustaining dominance over time like LeBron did. Others will say greatness is about taking the hardest road every single time, no matter what it costs. Two perspectives. One conversation. No final verdict. But one thing is clear: this didn't just create noise. It reshaped how people talk about legacy in the NBA moving forward, and now the question goes back to you. Where do you stand in this debate?